Hello everyone, welcome. This is a Total War Warhammer Legendary campaign with the Greenskins faction. I am the strategy professor. I also have a dwarf campaign going on the same channel, so be sure to go ahead and check that out as well if you'd like. Also, I'll just mention with the dwarf campaign, I spend the first couple of episodes talking about universal systems in the game that are also very important to learn about if you're new to the game or if you just want to go in depth with the strategy. Like you've maybe played a few campaigns but you haven't thought carefully about what does armor value really mean? How does melee attack and melee defense interact, and what does that mean in terms of the overall damage output? So I go over lots of those basic things, some of the basic stances that you can go in, some tips and tricks with stances. Such as how you can use the underway with the dwarves and the orcs to actually bait enemies who are fleeing into fighting you in a death match in the underground. And we also do lots of diplomacy over there, so I walk through how to nickel and dime, earn some extra money through trade factions, war declarations, peace declarations, just all sorts of neat tips and tricks if you'd like to know more about the diplomacy system as well. So there's lots of great stuff in the dwarf campaign first couple of episodes, even if you're not particularly a dwarf fan, which I think you should be because they're great. But even if you're not, I would just go ahead and at least skim those episodes and check out some of that. We'll go over some of those things in the orc campaign as well, but I really don't want to repeat myself too much because I know that the viewership is going to overlap at least a little bit between both factions, and I don't want to bore the people who watch the dwarf campaign, who listen to all that stuff and hopefully learned a lot. I don't want to bore them to tears by having to, go through all that stuff again. So if you want a more general overview and some lots of great tips and tricks that you can use with any faction, just watch the first couple episodes of the dwarf campaign as well. And that'll catch you up to speed with some of the things we're going to be doing in this campaign. Okay, so just like the dwarf campaign, I'm only running one mod, and that is the Conquer Anywhere and Diplomatic Options mod. So it's the same package, and it was available day one when I started playing the game, and it's just a really great package. So the Diplomatic Options doesn't affect our campaign at all, at least not from my perspective. It basically lets all factions confederate if they want to. So typically, I believe it's just the dwarves, orcs, and humans can confederate, but that will allow the vampires to confederate as well, at least from what I understand. I haven't played an undead campaign or a human campaign yet, but I know that the orcs and dwarves could naturally confederate anyways, and so this shouldn't affect my gameplay too much. It could make it a little more challenging if we get a huge vampire confederation down the line, but I don't think that's going to have a significant impact on the game. The other aspect of the mod, the Conquer Anywhere, will have a significant impact on the game. Traditionally, the orcs can only conquer areas that are other orc territories or that are dwarf territories. So that's primarily just the mountains and the Badlands area in the southeast of the map. But I want to conquer the entire map. I think that's part of the allure of a Total War game, is to be able to just take over the world, fight everybody, and just get into as many interesting strategic conflicts as possible. And so I like to be able to conquer everything, and so that's why I use this mod. It's not necessarily exploitative. It doesn't benefit me disproportionately because the computer can do that too. So you can have the Empire just taking over massive swaths of territory, right? Like they could start taking over undead territory, Bretonnian territory. They could even start encroaching in the mountains and take over some dwarven territory. So it doesn't just benefit me; it benefits the AI as well. So I think it's a great addition to play the campaign the kind of way that I think Total War should be played. So I like what Creative Assembly is trying to do with that. Like I think their heart was in the right place. Like they want you to get a different experience with each different faction, right? So they only want you to be able to conquer certain areas and just focus on that specific geography and its conflicts, so that you're not too caught up in trying to conquer the world. And then that saves a little bit of the other territories and some of the geographic challenges there for other campaigns, right? So I like where their heart is, but I want the massive challenge. I want it all. So we're just going to go ahead and use that mod. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into campaigns. New campaign. I will say I got about 3 episodes into an orc campaign, and I pretty much got wiped out. So even I, can make massive mistakes and die. So what I did in this campaign is I just accidentally early on positioned myself a little bit too aggressively, and I got tag teamed by a couple of other orc factions, and my legendary lord, when I tried to run away, he ran in probably the worst direction possible, and I was forced to fight a fight that was basically impossible. It was like 12 on 6 or something like that, and my guys were already hurt from another battle. So we gave it a good effort, but died in the end. So I just decided I would start a fresh campaign, because if you lose your legendary lord and your core army 3 turns in on legendary difficulty, you're done. You're going to lose way too much momentum, and the other factions are just going to overtake you. Legendary is already hard enough. If you guys aren't familiar with kind of the difficulty designations, legendary basically gives all of the units extra stats, particularly leadership, so they're almost never going to break on the battlefield. So if you look in my dwarf campaign, when I'm fighting Greenskins, you'll see these goblin spearmen just lasting to the last guy just about. Like, they won't run until there's like 10 people left in the unit. Whereas in my campaign here, you'll notice goblins run at like half. They'll run at 50% units dead. So if you watch the dwarf campaign, don't think that your orc units are going to be as sturdy as you see in that campaign. Also in the dwarf campaign, we got into a conflict that was one-on-one between level 1 lords. They had their orc war boss. I had this wasn't even the legendary lord. It was a normal orc war boss, and I had a normal dwarf commander. They were both level 1, and we just had to fight. So we just did a one-on-one death match, and he just completely obliterated me. Like, he only had probably 10% of his health taken off. And if you look at their unit cards, which I do in that campaign, and compare them, they're very similar. It should have been almost a 50-50 fight. But because of all the legendary bonuses they get to stats, he completely stomped me. So legendary is an extreme challenge. If the fight looks like it's going to be even in terms of units, like if it's 12 on 12, it's not an even fight at all. They will absolutely stomp you if you don't use high quality strategy and tactics. And that's what this campaign is going to be all about. Just giving you the most possible insight into critical thinking, and how you can use that critical thinking, how you can leverage it to form strategies so that you can actually beat the legendary campaign. I'm just going to write down the time when I started here really quick, because I would like to keep these episodes to about an hour so that you guys can budget some time if you choose to watch these, which I honestly, obviously hope that you do, but I would like to make it a predictable amount of time, so you can just, sneak out for lunch for an hour or something and just watch it while you're eating lunch, or in between studying perhaps, if you're, working on writing an essay or studying for an exam, you can sneak in an hour here and there. And that, is a nice segue. If you are studying for exams, check out some of the other content on this channel as well. I'm going to put up lots of great ways to help you think and write better, so get much better grades in all of your classes. Watch those. Those will only be about 10 minutes each. And then I'm going to have stuff for educators. If you would like to know some good activities, some good critical thinking, some good strategies for writing syllabi, some good strategies for test design, good strategies for retention and how to improve student morale, all of these things. I'm going to have a section on that, and then I'm going to have a social section as well, where we just talk about all kinds of topics and how strategic thinking can help improve your life on a social level as well. So, how to talk to strangers, how to make friends, the allure of bad relationships and how to avoid that, the pillars of good, strong relationships, how to interact with authorities such as your teacher, your boss. If you're a boss, how to interact with subordinates. Like, I've got a lot of great ideas for how to use strategic thinking to improve your social lives as well. So all of that will show up on the channel very soon. My plan is to create about 8 dwarf campaign videos, create about 8 greenskin videos, and then maybe a handful of these educational style videos, and then I might even throw in a couple of videos on how to carry a support with League of Legends, or I might also do just individual one-on-one battles as well. So I talk a lot during the campaign section, especially in the first couple episodes. And if you just, have a few minutes and you just want to watch a fight, I'm going to go online and try to do some multiplayer one-on-one as well, just to give you a good balance of action and deep strategy. So the campaign is going to be deep strategy. We will have some fantastic fights, but don't just think that I'm going to shortchange all of the strategy and just try to run and find a fight, 5 times an episode. That's not my goal with this channel. You can find that with other YouTube channels, but what I'm trying to do is give you the deepest possible strategic analysis at what I consider to be a pretty high level of gameplay, and allow you to use those strategies to improve your own gameplay. Because I don't make this channel so that you guys can watch me go through a legendary campaign and to show off or think that I'm cool or anything like that. It's really just to help you improve your strategic thinking, and for this section to improve how that strategic thinking can help you win games at the legendary level or even below. So that's what this is all about. So the campaign is going to be a lot of deep strategy. So let's go ahead and get into it here. So as I said with the dwarf campaign, and just to put a bow on that final conversation, so I'm going to open up the channel and just have lots of content for you guys to view. So I will respond to comments as well, but just keep in mind, if you comment on this very first video, that I may not be able to respond to it until about the 9th video. And it's not because I'm ignoring you, it's just because I haven't actually released these videos until there's going to be about 8 of them in a row. So I will get to the comments, I will address them, but just don't think that I'm ignoring you in the early episodes because I just haven't released the content yet. I'm recording it. In other words, I'm recording it way before I actually release it on the channel for this section. And then I will have more regular recordings after that. I just don't want people to come to a new YouTube channel and just see like a couple of videos and think that it's dead. Like, I want to show, a sample of everything that I have to offer, and hopefully you'll find it useful. But anyways, let's go ahead and move forward here. So the Greenskins have many unique sort of strategic aspects to them that are different from the dwarves, if you watch the dwarf campaign, or probably different from the vampire counter humans if you're familiar with playing those on your own time. And it's always important to think about, how do I win? Like, what are the strategic advantages of the dwarves, and how can I leverage that to gain an advantage over my opponents? So you need to be thinking carefully about how to play to the strengths and try to avoid the weaknesses of the dwarves. So let's take a quick gander here and see what's available. So they have really cheap unit upkeep for the most part. So compared to the dwarves, most of their units are very inexpensive. This means that you can keep very filled rosters, right? So, with the dwarves, you might want to stop at maybe 12 or 13 units in a roster just for kind of basic fights. Like, you usually don't need to go the full 20 because that's going to be very expensive unless that's your core army that's doing serious fighting. Whereas with the Greenskins, you can fill out the army with cheap units like goblins, wolves, and a couple other units that aren't going to cost a lot. And that will give you a big numbers advantage in a lot of fights. Also, they have a Waagh mechanic, which is like a fighting mechanic, which we'll talk about when we get into the campaign map. But it is crucial that you have 17 units in as many armies as you can afford them in right from the start of the game. So you want to get to 17 and keep 17 units in every army, because you're not going to be able to spawn these bonus armies unless you have 17 units. So the fact that it's cheap unit upkeep really helps facilitate that play style of just really zerging your opponent, just having a ton of units and swarming them. So that's something to keep in mind. They get a lot of extra money when you win fights and take over other factions, other towns. So we'll see that as that plays out on the campaign map. They have terrible leadership. So as I just described a few minutes ago, the goblins and orcs will run quite a lot. So this makes it even more important to place your general, your lord, as close to these frail units in terms of leadership as you possibly can. So you want people to be grouped around your leader as much as possible. I'll see some streamers go out and try to go solo, their leader with some other leader, and it's very far away from the rest of the fighting units. And so you're not getting that leadership bonus if you do that, and you're opening yourself up to a surround and all kinds of other potential problems. So you want your leader to be right in the middle of the fight with the rest of your melee, giving that leadership bonus. And we'll talk more about that positioning when we get into an actual fight. They have a very limited tech tree. We'll go into this as well, but compared to the dwarves, it's laughable. Like, they have very few techs. Most of them early on are garbage. Like, they're interesting, but they're just really not that good. But you have to get them for reasons that we'll talk about before. So it does get to some cool techs eventually, but not early on. You can't trade. So this may sound like an astronomical disadvantage, right? Because trading is the backbone of many other factions, right? Like the Empire wants to trade a lot. The Dwarfs want to trade a lot. And it seems like you could really make a ton of money trading, because you'll look at some of these resources and you'll be like, oh, there's gems. You know, if you're the dwarves, I start off with this awesome gem mine. I get, you know, whatever the number is, 29 gold per gem, and it comes with 40 gems. That means I'm going to get a bonus of, you know, 800 to 1,000 gold right off the bat as soon as I get a trade partner. No, that's not how it works. First of all, if you only have a couple of trade partners, you're only going to be able to trade a certain percentage of your goods. So you might only be able to trade, you know, 20% of your gems. In the dwarf campaign, you see that. I'll point that out when I talk about trading. But you get a lot less value from trade than you would think at first glance. So that's one thing. Another thing, when you're playing on legendary difficulty, you're going to get extreme political modifiers. I'm not sure if it's this high on lower difficulties. I don't play on lower difficulties, but as you move up in rank, the other enemies are going to be scared of you, they're going to fear you, and they're going to hate you a lot more because you're taking over the world. So that means they're going to be a lot less likely to do diplomatic things with you, such as go to war with you, defend you, settle a peace agreement with you, and in this instance, trade with you. So it's really hard to get a lot of trade bonuses as the game unfolds. And they're only going to get a certain percentage of your trade resources anyways. So what this means for the Greenskins, however, is that they get a very dependable income, a very stable income, a very standardized gold building. So we'll show you when we get in there, but pretty much you can guarantee yourself 300 gold from a tier 2 gold building, which is really easy to get in every single settlement that you take. And this is awesome, because with the dwarves or other trade units that can trade, you'll get some gold, but you'll also get off of these income buildings, but you'll also get some of that resource. So you might get 100 gold and, you know, 20 salt or something from a town. But because you can't trade that 20 salt very easily for the reasons I just described, then a lot of that just goes to waste and you're stuck with just 100 gold. Whereas the orcs, you can always count on getting that 300 gold regardless of how the diplomacy pans out and just how many resources a potential trade partner would want to take. So it might seem like a huge economic disadvantage, but on legendary, when it's hard to do diplomacy later in the game, this can actually be a huge boon. You can actually get a lot more money because you can't trade and because you have these standardized gold income buildings. So that can actually be to your strategic advantage, although it seems like a disadvantage here in the form of these quote-unquote limited economic buildings. Okay, let's go ahead and get into this. Alright, so you have two legendary lords to choose from. You have Grimgor Ironhide, and you have Azog the Slaughter. I will say that I like Azog from a lore perspective. I think it's really cool that he has this crown of sorcery and that he's able to cast death magic, I believe, as an orc. And so that's really awesome. And he gets this Wyvern, which is a flying dragon-like unit that you can use to get in some great flanks on the enemies. He doesn't get this until like level 21 or something, so you don't start the game with it. But it is really cool once he finally gets up to that. It gives you just some great tactical advantages. So Azog seems fantastic. And then Grimgor can never get any mounts, so he can't even get a boar, and he can't get a magical weapon slot or whatever it's called. I'll show you on the map, but basically only spellcasters can get this one item slot. And you will get a lot of items as the orcs, way more than dwarfs. Anytime you win battles, they're just going to shower you with items over time. So all of your guys are going to be decked out from head to toe with magical items, which is really cool. But he can't fill out one specific slot with that. So there's just some pretty big disadvantages. All you can basically do is just run in and fight with him. He does have very good fighting capabilities, so he's way better at fighting than Azog is. He just doesn't have any magic, he doesn't have any mounts, and he doesn't have any of that one particular item slot I was discussing. So in many ways, he doesn't seem quite as sexy from a strategic point of view as Azog, right? But here's the kicker. Look at these faction effects. This is so crazy. You get 5% extra movement range. That doesn't sound like much. That is massive. Campaign movement range is probably the best stat in the game because it lets you maximize your effect on the campaign map. So a lot of times you'll see it'll come down to pixels, whether or not you can engage that fight, whether or not you're going to be able to run from that fight, whether you can come up and take that town in time, or whether they're going to be able to build reinforcements. Like, movement range on the campaign map is just so critical that this is a massive bonus. And this is not just for him. This is for every single lord that you're going to hire and every single hero. So even for your goblin boys, you know, all your shamans, all of the heroes we're going to hire, all of them get this bonus too. So that means you're going to be in range for assassinations much more likely. You're going to be in range to help out the obedience in different provinces really quickly. So this is massive. I'm telling you right now, this is one of the best racial characteristics in the whole game. This is so good. This right here might be number 2. Like, it's that good. 10% upkeep for Black Orcs and Piggins. This is tremendous. I mean, just think about it. If you keep some of these units alive, you know, some of these battalions might be alive for 50, 60 turns. You know, if these Black Orcs don't die that I have at the beginning, you know, they could conceivably be around for 100, 200 turns, however long it'll take to finish the campaign. I haven't actually finished a legendary campaign. I've just gone about 90 turns deep in one with the orcs, and I was in a good position, but I decided to make this YouTube channel because I was enjoying it so much and wanted to share so many strategies with you guys. So I was in a really commanding position, but I wanted to start a fresh campaign to show you guys all of the decisions that I like to make. But anyways, this is massive. This is such a huge amount of money. Down the line, you know, you're probably going to have 8 armies in the mid to late game, and the vast majority of your infantry are going to be, you know, these Black Orc infantry. So, you know, if your army has a 4,000 gold upkeep of very top tier units and half of them are orcs and biggins, that's 2,000 a turn. And if you have 8 armies that are like that, that is 10% of 4,000 is 400, not 2,000. But still, 400 gold a turn upkeep. If you have 8 armies, that's 3,200 per upkeep. That's so much money, even in the late game. So this is just a tremendous amount of money that you're going to save off of this. So that is awesome. Whereas if you look at Azog, like, yeah, getting a little bit of extra money from sacking settlements is good. I actually don't sack that many settlements. I prefer just to take them over, just to gain that strategic foothold and to just push forward and take over more civilizations. So especially since we can conquer anywhere with this mod, there's just a lot less use for sacking, I think. So that's really not that great. It's okay, but it's not great. And diplomatic relations with undead, it's borderline worthless. The undead's already not going to like you. They're in a very different geography than you. So it's not going to be until the mid-game before we can even get close to these guys to do like war coordinations or something like that. You can't do any trading with them because the orcs can't trade. So there's really very little use for having this diplomatic bonus. Like, it's cool from a lore perspective because he has, you know, this crown of sorcery and he's able to commune with the undead. And so it's really cool from a story perspective like that. But overall, it's just pretty bad from a strategic perspective. So we're going to go with Grimgor Ironhide. He's not as sexy, doesn't have the wyvern, doesn't have the boar, doesn't have the magic, but he's certainly going to do plenty of killing. So we're going to go with him, and then we'll pick up Azog. There's a quest chain you can do to get this guy. That I don't remember the exact parameters for it, but I think I was able to pick him up in my other campaign around turn 30 or so. So we'll definitely pick him up and use his magic and see his wyvern and all that stuff, but we want these bonuses for sure, and that's the main reason we're going to pick Grimgor. So let's go ahead and start. Now I'm going to go ahead and skip this. I had shown this before in the cinematic. As soon as you get the game, you can see the cinematic at the beginning. But it just kind of trolls you because it sets up like you're fighting all these other orcs, and then it's like setting you up for this big battle. But on Legendary, you don't actually fight that battle. It's a tutorial battle that you fight at lower difficulties.
Is dominated by tribes of inferior Greenskins.
Okay, I'm just gonna jump past this guy. I will let this guy talk quite a lot. I actually like his voice. I think it's pretty funny. He just sounds so epic, like a medieval bard. It's great. I wish I could talk that way to the students in my classes sometimes, but I totally couldn't pull it off. Like, I would just look ridiculous. Not that I already, don't look ridiculous to my students, but I can't pull it off. But it's a great voice, so we will get to hear this guy talk more as the story unfolds. But I just didn't want to show that cinematic because it sets it up and just really amps you up to do this fight, like where you're storming this wall to take over Black Crag, and then they just totally don't give it to you in Legendary. They're just like, you're going to win the fight anyways, so we'll just give it to you. So I think you lose out on a little bit of gold, and you might lose out on a little bit of experience. I'm not 100% about that. I've never fought that battle because I always play Legendary. But anyways, I didn't want to build you guys up for that huge fight and then just totally not have anything there, so I just skipped the cinematic. So if we are able to defeat the Red Fangs in a fight, we get 1,000 gold. So sometimes you'll get these little quests, and you just go out and complete them and get a little bit of extra money. Alright. So this is the fightiness meter to get a Waagh that I discussed earlier. So this is the unique dwarven mechanics. So they don't have a grudge book like we had with the dwarves. They have this instead. And basically it rewards you for doing the kinds of things that you should be doing anyways. You should be going out fighting a bunch of factions. You should be conquering. You should be taking over new territory. You should do that as every faction. But particularly as the dwarves, because they get lots of extra money, or as the orcs rather, sorry. I do it as the dwarves. I play the dwarves just like they're orcs pretty much. I play all the factions like that. But with the orcs, every time you win a battle, you'll get about 20 Waagh, and if you get up to 80, and you have 17 units in your army, then you'll spawn a full 20 stack army next to you that's composed of usually relatively low tier units, but still, it's a 20 stack army. And you can go send that army to do whatever you want it to do, just about, within a few limitations, and we'll show that when we get them. But pretty much, you tell them to go attack this town, they'll go attack this town. Or you want them to go attack this army, they'll go attack the army. So it's really, really nice and gives you a lot of strategic advantage, especially early in the game. So, for instance, I could go over here, take care of these guys, take care of these guys, take over this town. If I get a Waagh, I could send the Waagh to take down this town, and then I could go up here and take over this town. So it's great because you basically, if you're managing the campaign correctly and you're getting a ton of Waaghs with your generals, you're getting 2 for the price of 1. So you're just paying for 1 army, and then you get that Waagh army on the side, and it doesn't cost you any extra upkeep. So that's a massive tactical advantage if you're very aggressive and keep winning the fights. Conversely, if you lose a fight, then your Waagh will go down quite a lot. I think you'll lose about 20. So if you get down here into this negative range, your guys will actually start fighting each other and you'll take attrition. Now you can go ahead and just kill a bunch of them, crack some skulls. I forgot what it's called exactly, but you can scare them all into discipline if you want to, and it'll give you a little bit more Waagh. That's only available if you're in the red zone here. You can't do that to build up Waagh right here. But anyways, so you want to be up here. You want your Waagh meter all the way up here as much as possible. Now keep in mind, it takes 17 to get the Waagh, and you have to keep 17 units in that army to keep the Waagh. So if I were to get a Waagh here with this army, and for some reason I wanted to consolidate, maybe bring together a bunch of hurt units, and I go down to 16 units, then I'm going to lose the Waagh at the end of the turn. So you always have to keep 17 units in that army to keep the Waagh going. If I get into a fight and a bunch of my units die and all of a sudden I don't have 17 units anymore, then the Waagh's gone. So you always have to have 17 units to be able to keep the Waagh. I made that mistake at least a few times in my 90 turn campaign, so very important to keep in mind. Okay, let's go ahead and get in a fight here. I've been talking quite a lot, and I will talk a lot during this campaign, but I also want to fight. So there'll be plenty of fighting too. So let's take a look at these guys. They have 6 units. I have 7, so it's looking pretty favorable. Keep in mind they have legendary stats though, so this is not going to be a complete cakewalk. I'm still going to have to use some good strategy in here. So let's just go ahead and do that.
Let's fight.
Okay, so now we can see all the units they have. They have some archers, they have a goblin war chariot, and a couple of melee units, so pretty weak overall. My units are much more advanced. These black orcs, Doomdivers, and boar riders are all much stronger than anything they have. but I need to be careful, especially this lord is extremely dangerous. The arrows matter a lot more against greenskins than they did for the dwarfs. Like, in the dwarf campaign, I didn't care if I got shot by these archers. Like, it didn't matter. They just tickle you because you have so much armor. But the orcs really don't have that much armor. They only have 30. So these archers are going to be a lot more relevant. They can do a lot more damage to orcs. I still don't think they're very good units. I'm probably not going to buy that many arrow boys. I might. But that's not really the style that I like to play with orcs. I like to get in there, do melee, and then get some cavalry to go in and flank and take out their archers that way, instead of just sitting there trading shots with archers. Because you're not going to be able to do that with any other campaign other than Greenskins. If you try to sit there and shoot with dwarves or human ranged units and just trade shots, you're going to get obliterated. So the orc archers really aren't that good except against other orcs. So as I said in the dwarf campaign, you want to fight anything that's not 75% or greater in terms of this balance of power, because this is just a probability. Just because it says that I'm, maybe 55% favored to fight, doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to win the fight. I'm pretty sure that in my legendary Attila campaign with the Western Roman Empire, that I actually took a fight when I was first learning it that was 55% in my favor, and I thought, oh, I'm going to win it, so I'll just, auto-resolve it, and I lost the battle. So I'm not sure if that can happen here, because I never put myself in a position where that could happen again. Always 75% or higher. Now, so it is just a probability. It's just a guesstimation of how the auto-resolve will work. They're not going to completely screw you over. Like, if it's 90%, you're not going to lose the fight. But if it's really close to 50%, you just might. So that's why I just arbitrarily, somewhat, just came up with 75%. I really want to see the bar around here, a solid yellow bar right here, in many circumstances before I take the auto-resolve. Now, there might be some where I take it anyways. If it's just like very unfavorable, like if it looks like something where they're giving me much better odds on the auto-resolve than I think would actually happen with manual resolve, then I'll take the auto-resolve. And I'll explain those situations as they arise. But in general, I would say a basic guideline is don't take the auto-resolve unless it's 75% or higher. Okay, let's go ahead and do it. Pour myself a little more water here. I just talked my way through like a previous hour episode or so on that other orc campaign before I got completely obliterated by that fight. So my throat is definitely a little parched, but I just wanted to come right back and start a fresh campaign and be a little bit smarter with my initial deployments. But just know, if you see me winning a ton of stuff through here, don't think that legendary mode is a cakewalk. It is not. Like, you can absolutely lose if you mess up like I did in that last campaign. Even very small, seemingly trivial mistakes can cost you the entire campaign. So that's one of the reasons why I try to tell you as much strategy as possible, and we're going to nickel and dime and try to just get every advantage we can possibly get. And it's not overkill, it's necessary. Like, you have to do that on legendary. But I just wanted to throw that out there. You see me winning a lot, don't think that this game is a cakewalk at all. Okay, so hopefully I'm winning a lot. I hope I don't get wiped out again. I'm going to just have to play slightly more conservative at the very beginning. And by conservative, I mean just not be a complete idiot and set myself up for getting flanked by two opposing armies. So we're still going to be very aggressive, but we're just not going to be foolish this time. Okay. So what I would like to happen here is to shoot at these guys, get them to come over to me, and then have these war boys come out of here and fight. So if you're in the woods like this, they can't actually see this. Even though you're just like, of course they can, these are so sparse, like they should be able to look in here and see this. They can't. So if it shows you this little eyeball, that means you can hide in the forest, and if you see this little forest icon, oh, it actually says it here. Awesome. On the dwarf campaign, I was wondering this. So it would tell you if you hovered over the forest that there were penalties to large units for fighting in the forest, but it didn't tell you what those were. Because I was trying to take some little dwarf units and, like, I was considering baiting some cavalry into going in and fighting in the woods, but I wasn't sure what the debuff was. Like, I knew there was a penalty, but I didn't know what it was. But now after I hover over these orc boys, if I hover over the forest while they're in there, it tells you what it is. Great. Okay, so they lose 20% speed and 20% melee attack, basically. So if you have horses, monsters, just other large units, you really don't want to fight in the woods because they're going to be disadvantaged. So hide in the woods with them, but get out of those woods when you're actually fighting. Conversely, if you just have infantry, try to lure them into the woods to fight with you in there. Okay, so I want to flank around with these boar boys. Ideally, I want to take out their ranged units, so I want these arrow boys out of there, and goblin archers. I'm not going to be able to get this chariot. It's too fast. It's a wolf chariot, which means it's going to have a speed of about 90, and my guys only have, 60. So we're not going to be able to run these guys down. We're just going to have to get shot by them. And that's going to suck, but that's just how it is. Actually, now that I think about it, I think I'm going to play this a little bit differently than last time. I'm going to put them over here. They can see him, sure, but because this chariot's positioned on this side, I really don't want to be getting shot in the back by the chariot. So if I run around this side and take out the archers from this angle, then the chariot, if it wants to shoot me, is going to shoot me from the front. And if you get shot from the front and you have a shield, it'll block, in this case, 30% of the damage. So that's 30% extra damage mitigation if you get shot in the front versus the back. If you get shot in the back, you don't get the shield block. So I think I'm going to line up these guys, even though they can see me, to come over here to position myself better against this chariot. Also, I'm going to have to move up a little bit from what I remember to get in range to shoot them, and then they're going to walk up and start shooting me with their arrows. So I'm going to have to probably come up and fight them about right here. So, in other words, I'm not going to be able to leverage the sort of sneak attack here. So I think this is good. As I mentioned in the sort of the preliminary before we got into the campaign here, you always want to keep your lord in the middle of your toughest infantry. That's what I've come to think of as the best strategy, because then you can't get surrounded. So Grimgor is going to be able to attack people because he has a small unit frame and there's going to be people in front of him. So he's going to be able to attack people. But by putting him in the middle like this, you are limiting the amount of people that can attack him, because he's going to be surrounded in part by his allies. So they can't get a complete surround on him. And that's really good because he has very low melee defense, so people can't actually land hits against him. So if you line him up on the front line like this and he's surrounded by other infantry units, then he's in a much, much better position in terms of survivability. So always put your melee lord in the middle here. Also, he gives this little blue circle here is the range where he gives out a massive leadership bonus. So this will keep him right in the middle of the fight, giving the maximum amount of leadership to the infantry, who are the very last people you want to break. You want your infantry to hold the line as much as possible. So this gives maximum range. Whereas if, for some reason, let's say their lord was out here, and I just were to run out with Grimgor and try to fight this guy one-on-one out here, he could get surrounded by other units, and you're not going to get that leadership bonus. So always try to keep him tight, keep him in the middle as much as possible, unless you just have like an extreme opportunity. I would keep him in here. The same goes for monstrous units. We'll talk about this more when we get to the building chain, but things like trolls, arachnok spiders, giants, all those kind of things, always put them with your infantry here so they can't get surrounded once again, because they're going to do their damage. They don't have to have a large surface area to do damage. All they need is their one unit frame, so they can do damage and not get surrounded by other things, especially units like slayers or just things that have a bonus versus large. Put them in the infantry. Infantry's not large, so they're not going to get a bonus against these guys, and just makes it a really tough matchup for the enemy, because now these slayers are going to have to fight through black orcs to get to something like trolls if the trolls are in the middle, and the black orcs are going to slaughter them because the slayers aren't designed to fight other infantry units. So that's just a quick some quick info that's very important that I'd never see any other streamers emphasize. I see heroes and monsters misused all the time, and people will be like, oh, these giants suck or these trolls suck because you know, they run them right out in front of everybody and just get gunned down by the artillery, or they'll chase, you know, cavalry off to the side and just get completely surrounded by their infantry. And it's because people don't use them correctly. They need support. They aren't good on their own necessarily. They're good when used in combination with other units, and you want to combine them with other infantry. Anyways, okay, so let's get into this. So I think we're good to go. So the game plan, run it up the middle, just shoot things with these guys, not a big deal. We'll probably try to shoot the chariots with them maybe. And the boars are going to flank around, hit their archers, and then flank into the infantry to finish it off. Okay. So we're going to have to move up a little bit here. You can always see the range just by clicking on this. So it looks like they're moving, but they're really just spreading out laterally right now. They're going to wait for me to get into range. Okay, here we go actually. Boom, fire. They just walked into range, so I actually do get to stand a lot closer than I did in the other campaign, which is nice. Okay. Just keep in mind on Legendary too, you can't see the balance of power, you can't see the map, and you can't see their unit cards. So I can't click on them to see what their morale is, or, you know, any other kind of penalties or bonuses that they're getting. Alright, so I was just shooting at these guys because they were the closest ones. It's not good to shoot into things that are spread out like this most of the time, because you'll miss, like that. Okay, this is going to be a hit, I think. I think that counts as a hit. But generally what you want to do with your artillery is fire them into the closest moving infantry unit. That way if you overshoot or undershoot sometimes, you're still going to hit things, even if it's not the target you were aiming for. So always try to aim for kind of the closest units, unless there is a very high priority target that you just want to get rid of. So we're going to go ahead, get these guys to engage. These goblins are pretty garbage, so we're going to try to flank with them. But we want these black orcs to be the front line, because they have the most armor. Let's go ahead and start positioning for a flank over here. Alright, they're shooting at me, so we're just going to go ahead and engage. Another thing is... Alright, so keep him, back him up a little bit. Okay, now we're going to charge. You don't want to tie up. Okay, let's go in here. Okay, so we don't want to fire into our, you don't want to fire artillery into your units because you're going to get friendly fire. So just set the artillery to shoot, what are these guys doing? They're walking, run. You want to set the artillery to fire into ranged units that your guys aren't currently attacking. So that's why the Doom Divers are firing right here. Okay, so we got goblins into the flank here. Just got a nice scrum going here. Gremgor's in here, racking up the kills, and they're not able to surround him, so this is a good place to be. We're lighting up these guys here, these chariots. They're actually doing quite a lot of damage, way more than I thought we would do. So that's quite good. Okay, so we've routed them. So I'm going to reposition here, try to shoot these guys, see if we can get them to rout. They're wavering a little bit. My boars are taking an awful lot of damage. Like, one thing to note about cavalry is, just watching this here real quick. Okay, so shoot those down, get them out of here. Wow, are they are getting outdone in melee by archers. Like, that is happening right now. Welcome to Legendary difficulty, you guys. So I really don't want these guys to die. They're my cavalry, so I'm going to have to let them heal up. But they're shock infantry as well. So what that means is whenever you charge, you get this charge bonus here, so of 40, and that goes to your melee attack and your weapon damage. And that lasts for 10 seconds after a charge. So that means, ideally with cavalry like this, we're going to run them down as much as we can. All right, shoot them. I want this lord dead, just in case I can track this guy down this turn. I may not be able to, but I just want to see. These guys are running them down. I want to run down these archers also, and I'm going to reposition to shoot these so they don't shoot my own boars when they go in there. But anyways, with the charge, you want to charge in and you get that bonus for 10 seconds, and it's a massive bonus. After those 10 seconds, ideally, you should run away, so back out, and then charge back in there, so you get that charge bonus again. So you get it a second time. Okay, stop shooting. The reason for that is I don't want friendly fire, since my guys look like they're going to be able to run them down. So that's how you should use cavalry. You want to charge, ideally hit them in the back. It should do a whole lot of impact damage, knock people over, stun a lot of people. Fight for, 10 seconds max, and then run away. Because the units will hopefully be engaged with the people that they're already fighting in the front, they won't turn around to hit them when your guys run away. Is this dude really gonna get away? Like, get over here. I need this guy dead for sure. Oh, that was probably a mistake. That's almost certainly a mistake. Okay, I'm gonna try to cut him off. I should have used my boar boys to run him down. It looked like these goblins were gonna be able to wrap him up, and I got greedy going for extra units, so I think he's gonna get away. But yeah, so they call that charge cycling. So you want to charge cycle, and by they, I just mean other YouTube streamers that I've seen that play legendary difficulty. You want to cycle your charges. So you want to charge people in the back, a few seconds, and then back up, and then charge again. So you keep getting that impact bonus. Now, usually if you run away out of a unit, then you will take damage because things will hit you while you're running away. But like I said, if it's in the back, I don't think they're going to turn around and hit the cavalry while they're running away if they're already hitting people in the front. So this is another reason why you always want to hit in the back. I just went after the archers there. I thought I could clean them up a lot faster. And then also, if I charge into the back of the infantry and the archers are sitting right there, all of a sudden they're shooting me in the back. And so I'm not going to get to use my shield, and it's just going to do an extreme amount of damage. So you really have to tie up the archers. Okay, pretty good fight. The only people that took a ton of damage were the Black Orcs and the Orc Boar Boys. So I'm going to end it there. Pretty nice. But you saw right there, like, we had archers hand-to-hand fighting my Boar Boys and winning. Just about. So welcome to Legendary. That's what can happen. So I have about 15 minutes left. We might get another fight in here, but I'm still going to just explain a few systems here for you guys. Once again, there's not going to be nearly as much pausing and explaining these sort of basic systems as the campaign unfolds. I'm just getting that out of the way at the very beginning so that you guys have as much strategic information as possible, and then we're going to move a little more swiftly as the campaign develops. I'm still going to stop and explain my reasoning behind situations, but I'm not going to have to stop and talk about things like, this is the building chain, these are units, these units are good for these reasons, here's the skill tree, here's the Waagh system, here's the loot system. We're not going to have to do that a lot. I just wanted to clarify, I don't mind doing that. I love talking about it. I love talking about these systems. This is great. I'm really excited about this channel. But for those of you that think this is maybe going a little slow or just not as much action as you'd like, I just want to clarify that this is just episode 1 and we're just getting the preliminaries out of the way. There's going to be a lot more action and sort of forward progress as the campaign unfolds. If you do want more of that stuff, however, like I said at the beginning of this video, go to the dwarf video, just the first episode or two. Just listen to how I talk about armor, the stances, diplomacy, all the stuff like that. Even if you don't like dwarves, it's a great explanation. So just go over there if you like the explanation and you want more. I'm trying to sort of meet everybody halfway in the middle here and give some explanation at the beginning, but then also try to get a little more forward progress than perhaps I had at the beginning of the dwarf campaign. So. Alright, so we have 3 choices here. We can ransom the captives. If we do that, we lose some fightiness. If you see on this bar, it's going to cost us 3. So naturally in the battle, we got 18 for winning the battle. So not quite the 20 that I thought, but we got 18 for it. So that's pretty nice. We had some casualties though. So because people died in that fight, we're getting -5. Animosity just happens every single turn no matter what. So you just lose 1 for orcs liking to fight each other. So that's just part of the story. That's part of the lore. It's part of the fun of playing the orcs. They just love to fight things. So remember, we want to get to this magic number of 80. Once we get to 80, and if we have 17 units, then we will spawn a Waagh, and that means that we get that extra bonus army. So we want to get to 80 as soon as possible. However, I will say that we only have, 7 units right now. So we'd need to make, it's going to take us another 1, 2, 3, 4 turns of just straight recruiting to be able to get to this number of 80. Also forgot to assign this banner because I'm a complete noob. So, sorry about that. You always want to check your banners and make sure that you put them on your units. That would have been very useful for my front line, obviously. So, I apologize for that mistake, but, always check the banners. I must have just been talking about something else and forgot to do that. So, we can ransom the captives. This is going to give us cash, but we're going to lose 3 fightiness. We can slaughter captives, which is going to give us leadership, but no money, and it's not going to affect our fightiness at all. So, in the dwarf campaign, it's pretty worthless to slaughter the captives, I believe, most of the time, because the dwarves have such a high base leadership. They're all in the 70s and 80s. That's just part of their identity, that this bonus really doesn't add a lot statistically to the dwarves. But because the orcs start at such a low leadership value, with the legendary penalty of -5, a lot of these orcs only have like 30 or something. So, you're looking at 10 to 15% extra leadership here. Probably on the 15% side. So, this is definitely something to consider, and it lasts for 5 turns. It will give you a negative political modifier with the faction that you slaughter, but we're going to be fighting everyone anyways, so that's not really going to matter that much. So if you think you're going to be fighting a whole lot and it's going to be close fights and you're going to need that leadership, you might want to go ahead and slaughter. Eat captives gives you some regeneration. 3% is not a lot, certainly, but it's something. So if I'm fighting away from home and I don't have a town I can step into the next turn, or I just want to preserve the Waagh, but I really don't need this leadership bonus, sometimes I will just go ahead and eat the captives. So I don't think, for some reason, this doesn't give a political penalty. So slaughtering the captives gives the penalty, but eating captives does not. Maybe because you eat them all, there's no evidence that you actually killed them all, and so you don't get that political penalty because they don't see all the dead people around because you ate them. Whereas with the captives, because you just killed them all and didn't eat them, then they'll find all these dead bodies and hate you. I don't know, that's pretty interesting from a story perspective, but cannibalizing people, if it's another orc faction, actually causes less diplomatic problems than just killing them. So they're cool with eating, but they're not cool with stabbing people. So that's interesting. But I think here I'm going to go for the money. And the reason is it's early in the game. I need a lot of money to just get things rolling. And also, I'm nowhere near the 17 right now. It's going to take another 4 turns of recruitment. This is if I don't step into enemy territory and start killing other people. So it's another 4 more domestic turns of recruiting before I can even get that. And I suspect we're going to have at least a few more fights before we get to 17 units. So I'm willing to sacrifice some of that now just to get the cash.
Let's find some scum.
Okay, so now if we go kill the Red Fangs, we get some extra cash, which is good.
Gorfang may think that his fortress at Iron Rock will provide him cover, but he is mistaken. Drive his forces out and take another of his strongholds as your own.
Love it. I love this medieval dude. Okay. Alright, so they just want me to take this and get 1,000. Now,
Does bear involve fighting?
okay, so I'm not able to chase this guy down, if you'll see. So if I had Brute Marcher, which I'll talk about in a second, I probably would have been able to chase him down. But that's just not going to happen. Actually, we'll talk about it right now. This will probably be kind of near the end of the episode, too, and then we'll start off next episode, maybe trying to get into a fight with that guy. And we'll talk about the buildings and all that stuff in the next episode. Okay, so anytime you level up, you get a skill. Always Route Marcher, 100%, no exceptions. There might be some exceptions out there somewhere. I've never seen a situation where there's an exception, though. You always want this campaign movement range. I already talked about how huge it is with the bonus that Grimcore gives, but it really is just massive. So 10% on everybody, every faction, all the time. You always want campaign movement. Now, the question is, what do you do after that? All of these are pretty bad on the bottom. Like, they seem good, but they're traps. And the reason for that is you need your general, like, who's going to be fighting, you need him to actually be able to fight and help you in combat. All of these are campaign boosters. So yes, extra income from raiding, that sounds cool. Extra looter from looting, 15%, that sounds pretty cool. but you have other characters that will also be able to do these things. Like, you're going to have shamans, you're going to have the little goblin guys. The goblin guys are going to get all kinds of great stuff down here, and we're just going to be littered with goblin guys. There's going to be a ton of them roaming around giving us these bonuses. So don't worry about getting that with your combat lord. Get that with your goblin heroes, and you'll get a similar effect, and you can use these skills that you get with the combat person on actual combat things. Okay, so in the dwarf campaign, we talked about how this is kind of a rookie trap up here a lot of times, and how you really want to stay in the middle. And the reason for that is this buffs up one person. This is a very strong one person. This is Grimgor Ironhide, but he still only gets to swing, you know, maybe once per second. I don't know what the number is, but he has a very limited number of swings. Versus if you have a 20 stack army, the other 19 people are getting to swing or fire, you know, hundreds, if not thousands of times in the middle of a fight. So 1 versus 1,000. It doesn't take a lot of math to figure that out, that you want to buff the other 999 people rather than just the one person, even if that person is equal to 200 people in terms of his capability. Still, buffing the other people is much more advantageous. So we're going to go up the middle here. You have to get Intimidating Presence. Du Bois. This is absolutely, positively where you want to start. And the reason for this is that the goblins and orc boys all start with a relatively low base for their melee attack. I think I talked about this earlier. It's tough because I can't remember if I talked about that in this video or in the previous campaign video, because I'm obviously repeating a lot of stuff that I said in that video before I just completely cratered that campaign with kind of a foolish decision. But if you have a low base, so, you know, whatever the number is, let's just take a look here. Melee attack 26. So our base is 26. With that Du Bois skill, you're getting 12 extra melee attack. That's almost 50% more melee attack, which means you're doing almost 50% more damage in combat. So that is tremendous, and you're going to be getting a lot of orc boys throughout the campaign. They are just your bread and butter unit, because when you start going to all these fringe places in your empire, when you're trying to take on, you know, all these factions and expand, you're probably not going to be able to put up, you know, tier 4 buildings in each one of these places so you can get black orcs. You're only going to have a few key strategic places where you really tech up and build the high tier units. And if you just need to fill out your roster, like maybe half of your units have died during this you know, march that you've gone on to take all these settlements, and you just need to fill it out and just get back to 17 so you can keep your Waagh going, then you're going to be buying orc boys for the most part. So this is useful throughout the entire game, not just early game, and it's basically almost a 50% increase in damage for your core unit. That is a lot. It's not quite as crazy as the dwarfs, because the dwarfs also get melee defense, but it's pretty dang good. You also get charge bonus, so anytime you charge them with the orc boys, it's going to be great. So for those first 10 seconds of the fight, you're going to get an extra 10 melee attack and an extra 10 weapon strength, so that's fantastic. Now, you're not going to be able to cycle your charge as much as the cavalry. You're not going to be able to back up and run. They will hit you a lot. If you're melee infantry and they're facing you and you try to run away, you're going to take a huge detachment penalty for that. So don't try to do the same strategy with these guys, with the infantry, that you do with the boars. It's not going to work the same way. Plus the charge bonus is not as high. But it's still nice when you're just first running out there, starting the fight, you're starting it off right. Also, if you're able to get a unit to rout, so let's say that you know, charge some goblins from the back and deal this extra damage, and they flee, then you can transition right away and go charge another unit. So, you know, as you start killing units quicker and quicker, then you can leverage this charge bonus even more. So it's not as useful as melee defense, but it's still quite useful, I think, overall. The orcs, as far as I can tell, have pretty terrible shooters, like, and it's just missile infantry too. This doesn't even include like spider riders or wolf chariots or anything like that. This is just straight up like goblin and orc boy shooters, arrow boys as they call them. It's terrible. So they're really bad. I might get some in the early game, maybe, just so that I have some ranged, but they're really not worth upgrading. Now, just maybe 1 or 2 minutes here. Savages. This is quite good, especially later in the game. But keep in mind, this is a percentage bonus. This is not a flat bonus. So, you know, your percentage of 12% on all of your infantry units. So let's look at the orcs again. So your weapon strength is 34. So 12% of that, you know, is going to be, I don't even know, like 4 or 5 damage, something like that. The 10% would be 3.4. So yeah, somewhere between 3 and 4 damage, which is a lot less than the melee attack. So, you know, this was giving us effectively 50% more damage because it's a base increase. So it's straight up 12, which is great if you have a low base. This is a percentage increase, which is great if you have a high base. So because these starting units have such a low base, this is not nearly as good early game. So it might be more relevant later when we start getting black orcs and other units that have a higher base damage. But for now, we're just going to max out the boys, get 1 point in this, and then we're going to start transitioning higher. Ard lads, this is the same thing. Get extra hit, extra charge bonus for your infantry units. These are just the bigger infantry units. So statistically, it's not going to be as impactful because they're going to have a higher base score. But it still is going to be very, very good. It still is going to be, you know, at least a 30% increase most of the time. So that's really good. Bellower, this was garbage for the dwarfs because they already have really high leadership, and you don't need to waste points on this because you don't need any more leadership. But with the orcs, you need leadership because trolls are going to run away. Goblins are going to run away. A lot of units are going to have a hard time with leadership, especially with those legendary penalties of -5. So this lets you expand your aura so that you give out a leadership to more people. So this can actually be quite good. So not as good as Ard lads, but definitely something to consider. You don't have the greatest artillery in the world, very similar to the ranged units over here. I wouldn't really upgrade this, certainly not early. If anything, just really late in the game. If you just start getting a bunch of doom divers or rock lobbers near the end, maybe, but this is just not the orc strong suit, so I wouldn't recommend that. Riders. This is actually quite good in the mid game because we're going to get a lot of spider riders, which I'll talk about next episode, why those are so strong. But getting an extra 12 melee attack is somewhere between you know, a 40 and 50% bonus damage that they're going to put out. So we're not going to have as many of these guys as we have infantry units. We might only have 3 spider riders you know, in our deployment, but it's still pretty useful. And this is the crown. This is one of the whole reasons why you go down this tree, other than just getting massive buff for everybody. This is great. Stand your ground. So this is an AoE buff to everyone in range, and 40 meters is pretty far. 36 melee attack, or 36 melee defense, and 34 melee attack. This is massive. I mean, this is over 100% extra defense and 100% extra offense for almost every unit. It's even more than that for some units. So, you know, if you think about goblins who have an extremely low base, this is just phenomenal. Like, I mean, it comes borderline to making you almost invulnerable in melee and making you hit almost every single time you swing. Like, it's extremely good, and it only lasts for 11 seconds. It is massive, massive, massive. So you really want to get this as soon as possible. So we're just going to get 3 points in boys, 1 point in savage probably. We're going to get this, then we're going to get 3 points in Ard lads, 1 point in either riders or bellower, and then stand your ground. And then we have some options. We can get more in here, or at some point if we want to get 1 point in this, it's a great 1 point wonder. This is pretty good if you're taking a lot of heat from missile units later on in the game. And then we might actually go through here. I know I said that it's not the greatest tree, but it has a great buff at the end. So once again, this is something that's going to give 34 melee attack to everybody. And you want as many steroids as possible for your orc units. They scale very well with extra melee attack because they often have very high base damage. So this can be quite strong, and it's on a much shorter cooldown. So it's a 45-second cooldown versus a 90-second cooldown. So this is quite good. So we will probably transition up here and just start getting some of these. Grimgor is a fantastic duelist, so these are certainly going to be relevant. But we're going to start here first. Okay, let's go ahead and end the episode here. I hope you guys learned a lot. I hope you had a good time. Hope to see you again in the next episode. And yeah, we'll try to, our goal for next episode is just talk about the buildings, talk about the skill tree some, and then we'll try to get into a fight with at least one of these guys in the next faction, and hopefully not get completely wiped out and double teamed by them, like what happened to me in my other campaign. So thank you very much, and have a wonderful evening.